What's up, YouTube? Today we're looking at the Color Cup once again. It is the second week of the Color Cup, so we're trying to spice things up, catch people off guard, and today we are doing that with Energy Ball Galvantula. Now, usually, if people are going to use a bug electric Pokemon, they're going to use Charjabug. Charjabug is pretty much better in every single way. It's got better bulk, it's got better pacing. To the X-Scissor versus the Lunge. So there's really no reason to use Galvantula anymore. What Galvantula does have, however, is access to a grass coverage move in Energy Ball. And what that means is if you safe swap into Galvantula, you might bait out a Pokemon that is usually not concerned about Charjabug, for example. So maybe a Mud Bois because it resists the Volt switches kind of deal. So that is why we're running Galvantula, and that is why we're running Energy Ball and Galvantula to try and catch some of those Mud Bois off guard. So let's take a look at some battles. We are pairing it with a Quagsire on the lead and an Alolan Marowak in the back for an ABC style team, and we're off to an abysmal lead in Superior. So we come in with our Galvantula, and we actually bait out a Kingdra here, a Shadow Kingdra. So that's, honestly, this is a fine matchup for us. We can go pretty much just straight Lunge in this matchup, and they actually let us get to 2 moves before they even throw their first. So that is absolutely huge. At this point, we are not flipping switch. Oh, it was CMP, which is absolutely massive. And the Octazooka doesn't quite take us out, but they only get a little bit of extra farm. And at this point, we can pretty much just commit to an Aqua Tail. Their attack is double debuff, so I can let this go no matter what it is. It is just the Octazooka. We let that go. We don't get the debuff, so at this point we farm up to back-to-back Aqua Tails. And we KO the Kingdra, and now we're switching into our Marowak. And what is in the back is a Toxapex. So this is actually a pretty good matchup for us, especially when we're up shields. Obviously, Bone Club is a pretty abysmal move. That being said, we still do have the pacing advantage, and we have quite the shield advantage in this matchup. The 2-0s, this is a very comfortable take for the Marowak. So at this point, we're just going to get to 2 moves. Do have to shield up both brines. Might overfarm a little bit in this matchup. We'll see. Yeah, we actually overfarm by 3 fire spins, which is a pretty nice overfarm. Poison Jab's obviously not adding up here because it is resistant on that ghost typing. And that does mean that we can get to the Shadow Ball. This is just an aerial ace, it will not take out. Alolan Marowak is actually surprisingly bulky. If you look at its stat product on PvPoke, it's got a pretty nice stat product, especially for a fire type. And that KOs, and at this point, we know we can outpace the Stone Edge before they can make it to their next move. And the Stone Edge will be enough to KO Superior from this range, and we're able to take that first game. Okay, into the next match, we have a Dugong on the lead. I'll be interested to see if I bait or if I don't bait in this matchup, because every single time I full sent, they shielded, and every single time I baited, they no shielded, so that was pretty unfortunate. But I do full send, which means they shield correctly. And they get off that Icy Wind. This time I'm going to come in with Galvantula as soon as I'm debuffed. That does mean they can outpace me to the move. I will let this go, actually. And I get to the Lunge here, and they come in with a Bomb Snow. So this is super effective coverage. It will take 2 to take out at this point. And it looks like that was a CMP tie because I did not see a Powder Snow sneak. So we get off the second Energy Ball. They actually let that go, so they let us flip switch, and then they come back in with a Dugong, which might actually be worse for us, to be completely honest, because we don't have a great answer. Obviously, Ice Shards are resisted here, and we just have to shield up a Drill Run. This is a pretty easy bait for my opponent, but they do full send the Drill Run, and what is in the back? It is a Jellicent, so we are going to full send this Shadow Bone. They do correctly shield that up, and at this point, I'm going to come in with my Quagsire, force them to throw their energy. They do throw the Surf, and these hexes are adding up, but I will shield this up. I can't really let anything go here, Surf or Shadow Ball. but we are going to be able to outpace the two moves here. So we are just going to full send the Shadow Ball or Shadow Bone. That puts them deep into the red, and we actually CMP tie them with the Bone Club on to their next move. And now it's a race. And fortunately, we are able to CMP tie them on the drill run here with our own Bone Club, even though we did get to a Shadow Bone, so that would have been the safer play, but I didn't think I'd get there. So we're still able to take that game. Another bad lead. Quagsire cannot catch a break. Going to come in with a Galvantula, and we bait out a Mud Bois. Do they respect the Energy Ball? That is the question. Do they know Galvantula has this for coverage? They do not. Shout out to Home Slice Henry. And then they come in with a Toxapex. So that's a little interesting here. It is 4-3 pacing, so we actually get to the Energy Ball. Obviously, we don't have super effective coverage here, but that is fine. Energy Ball does still do about 50% after those Volt switches. And they can very comfortably take us out, but we have Flip Switch that is absolutely massive. We can now align our Quagsire into this, and then our Marowak onto their Decidueye. That being said, they do have super effective fast move and charge move coverage. They are going to make it to another move, so I do kind of have to throw this Shadow Bone right away. And at this point, I think we have to commit to the fast move farm down, and my opponent does the exact same thing. And now it's just Quagsire versus Toxapex in the back, and we're able to take that game. Another terrible lead for Quagsire. We're going to come in with our Galvantula here, and we actually bait out a Talonflame, which is nice because we can probably grab a shield with the threat of a discharge here. And because we get that, we actually can get to a second move. Obviously, this will not KO, but it'll do some decent chip. And they actually double shield, potentially respecting that it was just a bait. So that's massive because now we've grabbed two shields and their defense, and their attack is 2 times lowered. So at this point, even if it's a Brave Bird, we can let this go, especially because we don't have a great lead. And they actually go back to back. Our Quagsire has no play in this matchup, so we're just going to kind of sacrifice. Fly does not take out. They come in with the Ferrothorn, and now we've got Marowak on this bad boy. They do farm up to a potential Thunder here, so I will respect this damage. It's just a Power Whip, and at this point I can get the full farm down. This can only be another Power Whip. We can just let this go, resist the damage, doesn't do much. Are they going to come back in with the Talonflame, or are they going to show us our third? Neither. They're going to concede the match, and we're able to take that game. Okay, Quagsire is just awful for lead on this team. That being said, it's worked out for us thus far, so I may as well keep playing it out. And then they come in with a Kingdra after they grab the shield with the Abomasnow, so that's pretty interesting. We're just going to go straight lunge in this matchup. They do let the first one go through. We can just make it to another lunge. They will have to respect this or get KO'd. And they do shield that up. And if they don't throw, it looks like I might have been able to get to another move. So they do throw just enough to get a KO from this range. But now they're 2 times lowered. So I'm not really worried about any move here on my Quagsire. You can just come in, soak up this damage, go for the full farm down. They do make it to a last second move. And at this point, I can just let this go, get the full farm down, come in with the Marowak, get a nice fire spin through, and it's a Feraligatr in the back. So how are we going to win this is the question. Do we full send or do we bait is the question. And we say bait, hoping that we can grab a shield here. Can we grab that shield? No, my opponent correctly calls that bait, which is pretty unfortunate. So we kind of have to throw the move instantly here. Back-to-back Bone Clubs. We do at least get that shield. But that means now that if we can get the full farm down, we can come out with the Stone Edge loaded, and my opponent actually makes that even easier for me. They just come in with the Abomasnow. We've got a bunch of energy loaded from before, and at this point they're an Aqua Tail range on that Feraligatr, and we will be able to outpace because they were energy dry, and we're able to take that game. So I'm unable to flip switch, but able to grab those shields, and nice coverage on for the Abomasnow. But once again, another Abomasnow on the lead. I don't think Quagsire has won a single lead yet, but we do bait out a Quagsire with the Galvantula. Do they know about the energy ball coverage? They do not. That is 2 for 2. My opponent is shell-shocked. They do not know what to do. And they're going to have to throw a move here. Will a non-shadow weather ball even KO from this range? It is just an icy wind, and it does not KO. That is massive, because now we get a super effective lunge. Even though our attack is debuffed, that still does a decent amount of damage, and we flip switch, so now we can just put our Marowak onto this guy, and it is a Jellicent in the back. They do outpace the move, which means they will outpace us here, which means we should probably bait with a Bone Club, but we are actually going to full send the Shadow Ball, expecting my opponent to call this bait. Do they respect it? They do not, and my opponent instantly resigns the match after that move goes through, trying to call the bait, and they were unsuccessful. Next match, Abomasnow lead. How many Abomasnow leads are we going to see? It looks like I should probably flip the orientation of this team. Jesus. Not picking up a single good lead, but that kind of shows you the strength of this team, because even though we're losing all these leads, we're still winning matchups. They come in with a Quagsire and boom, 3 for 3. Oh my god, opponents. They do not know about this Galvantula coverage, and that's kind of the surprise factor of Galvantula. And they come in with Kingdra. And we're going to get to a lunge here before they can KO, and these Volt Switches are adding up, so they kind of have to respect that damage. And that lets us get a whole other Volt Switch through, which is massive. We flip switch. We can just put our Quagsire on this. Their attack is lowered, so even an Outrage only does about 75%. And they come in with the Abomasnow here. We can get the full farm down. Respect no move here. It is the Energy Ball. It does about 40%. From the Shadow, and at this point we're going to come out with multiple moves loaded. We're going to get to the Bone Club here. They're pretty much low enough that we can just get to back-to-back Bone Clubs, but they actually shield the first, so we're just going to go for the Shadow Bone here. Shadow Bone from this range will be enough to KO, and we're able to take that game. Another bad lead, another win. Can we get one good lead? No. Okay, Ferrothorn on the lead. In we come with Galvantula. And they're staying in this matchup, which is pretty interesting. So we're actually just going to go for the lunge right away, because all their moves are resisted here. Yeah, so then they finally get into Talonflame here, and at this point, we can just make it to another lunge. We farm up, like, we've potentially got the discharge, but we don't. So we grab the shield, unable to flip switch, but we do grab a shield and put them at about 50% HP. And I think that Ferrothorn on the lead was also about 50. So they're probably going to full send the Brave Bird here, but once again, Quagsire doesn't have play in this matchup, right? We've got a matchup into the Ferrothorn on the lead, but we are actually going to shield this. That is pretty interesting. I guess just understanding that we don't really have the ability to farm down with Fire Spin with our Marowak in the back. So we are going to farm up as much as we can and then instant swap into our Marowak. This could be a Thunder, but I kind of just have to let this go. I do not know what that back Pokemon is. And it is a Thunder, and it's a Charizard in the back. So we're going to farm up to the Shadow Bone, bait with a Bone Club here. Charizard is glassy, so yeah, they're going to respect that damage for sure. And then they kind of throw an alignment, which is pretty big for me, because now I can just kind of go for one in the move. No, I'm actually going to throw instantly. Maybe not wanting to take that extra wing attack damage, but it doesn't matter because they are still able to make it to another move. But at this point, that does put them in farm down range. And at this point, a Stone Edge from this range will be enough to KO this Ferrothorn. We got that Fire Spin through. So that KOs the Ferrothorn. Mud Shot and Wing Attack, both of us go down at the same time. And fortunately, we had Marowak in the back, so we were able to take that game. Another bad lead. Oh my god. Okay, we cannot catch a break. This Disintegrate is staying in this matchup, but that means we can outpace. I don't know if we actually do outpace, but they let me get to a move first anyways. And then they shield that up, and then they come in with Typhlosion. We're only going to get to one move. We're just going to throw the lunge because we don't have the discharge. And once again, my opponent always respecting that potential discharge there. So that is massive. We grab both shields in that matchup. And now we can come in with Quagsire. We will resist all their moves, unless they're running Solar Beam like I did in a previous video. But they're not. They're just running Blast Burn. And at this point, we are able to make it to the Aqua Tail before they can make it to another move. Farming up them as much as we can. What are they going to come back in with? They're going to come in with Decidueye. We catch the move, but this is going to be a super effective Spirit Shackle, so we kind of have to shield this up. Yeah. And it's a good thing we did because they have a Marowak not a Marowak, a Toxapex in the back. But this is a decent matchup for our Marowak because we have the shield advantage. And they throw an alignment, which is pretty big for us because we need that free energy. And they do make it to a Brine. I don't think a Brine would even come close to KOing us from this range. I think we can survive one, but we would rather not. And we actually do outpace to the next move. If this is enough to KO, we'll stay in this matchup. If it's not, we'll catch on Quagsire, and that's exactly what we'll do. Beautiful catch on the Quagsire. Don't need it for this final match. And they actually let us live, or either that or Brian is just a terrible move, which means they get an extra Astonish through, which isn't great because now that means they can outpace us to the move. Spirit Shackle versus Fire Spin versus Astonish, and unfortunately we are going to end that match in a draw. But into the final match of the video, finally picking up a good lead. It is a Talonflame, and they're staying in this matchup. So we're going to farm up to the Stone Edge, bait with an Aqua Tail. Not really a bait, it's still a super effective move, but it wouldn't KO. So my opponent does respect that energy anyways, and they're staying in this matchup, which clues me into the fact that they're probably weak to Quagsire in the back. And at this point, they are basically in Aqua Tail range, and they let that go. But at this point, I'm double shielding because I suspect they are weak to Quagsire in the back. And with that Mud Shot, I can get the full single resisted Mud Shot farm down. Come out with a move loaded. They have a Superior in the back. And they're actually staying in this match to throw an Aerial Ace, which is pretty interesting. No, they're going for the Resisted Frenzy, and then they're staying in this matchup, so that's pretty interesting. We will get the super effective Lunge off. That does some decent chip, and now we see why they were staying in that matchup. They were double weak to Bug in the back. So we grab the final shield and force them to throw their energy, which is pretty huge. We can just come in with the Quagsire, get the Stone Edge off. This will be enough to KO, and then it'll just be the Superior in the back against my Marowak. So we're instant switching. They see my Marowak, and then they resign the match. So yeah, that was the team. As you saw, it honestly worked surprisingly well. I did have to drop a little bit of elo to make this team work. I think people above 2500 at this point understand that Galvantula does have Energy Ball for coverage, and if it's farming up to 4-volt switches, there's got to be a reason why. Usually Galvantula is just going to be spamming out those lunges or those discharges, especially when they're super effective. So not surprising that this didn't work at a little bit of a higher elo, but if you are struggling to climb, I honestly highly recommend using Pokemon with surprise movesets, because as you saw in the previous video with Typhlosion with Solar Beam, and in this video with Galvantula and Energy Ball, that super effective coverage, baiting out that Mud Bois, flipping switch, it can flip so many matchups, especially because you saw in these matchups, I think I lost 9 out of the 10 leads, either that or 8 of them. It was ridiculous, and this team was still able to come back and win. And I think this team would function similarly with Charjabug. You just wouldn't be able to flip switches often, but I think it's kind of just a safe Pokemon in this meta in general. So yeah, I appreciate you all very much for watching, and until next time, peace.